Not everything tastes like chicken, and that's certainly true when it comes to Hypomyces lactiflorum, more commonly known as the lobster mushroom. This unusual fungus earned its name from its bright reddish-orange color and because of its seafood-like flavor. But that isn't the only thing interesting about this delicious parasite. So let's learn more about what makes this fetching fungus so fascinating in today's video. So with this, things are going to get pretty confusing pretty quickly, because the lobster mushroom is a parasite, but it's also a fungus, and despite its name, it's absolutely not a mushroom. In fact, mushrooms are its host, which is pretty strange if you think about it. Just like how a turducken is a chicken inside a duck inside a turkey, the lobster mushroom is a fungus digesting a mushroom that is digesting other decaying matter. Normally we don't think of fungi or mushrooms feeding off of other fungi or mushrooms, and I would bet, like me, most people don't even know the difference between the two. So the term fungus is used for any members of one of the several kingdoms of organisms that include molds, yeasts, and mushrooms. This is opposed to the other kingdoms that include plants, bacteria, and animals. And I would go more into detail in taxonomy, but honestly, I already had to remove the statement that there are 6 kingdoms from the script, because trying to explain or justify that statement would most likely take up a lecture that would take up several hours on its own and would be incredibly boring. So, to grossly oversimplify things for the sake of YouTube views, a fungus is a living thing that gets its energy from directly digesting and decomposing things they're touching in their environment. And generally, they don't move other than through growing, or except for releasing spores or some other rare exceptions. This means that all mushrooms are fungi, but not the other way around. So, then what makes something a mushroom? Well, to grossly oversimplify a second time, a fungus that produces a fruiting body that bears spores and the fruiting body itself are what we call a mushroom. And so, because the lobster mushroom doesn't produce a fruiting body, it's not a mushroom. But it certainly does eat mushrooms, most often milk caps and brittlegills. The fungus grows on these mushrooms, covers their outsides completely, and then slowly digests them. And because it's literally leeching off of another creature, it's a parasite. This term is also very confusing, as most people think parasites are their own classification of pathologic animals separate from bacteria and viruses, but this isn't true. A parasite is, and for those counting, this is the third gross oversimplification, because, yay biology, it's an organism that is adapted specifically to gain a benefit at the net expense of another organism through a close relationship that is not just predation. We mostly think of parasites as animals or animal-like creatures because those are the ones that most commonly affect humans. But in reality, they're not specific to any particular kingdom and can include things like plants and fungi. From what I've read, the lobster mushroom is delicious when used in cooking, with a very delicate flavor that can be easily overpowered. The taste is said to have notes of shellfish, nutty and woody flavors, along with a dense texture and a high fiber content. It's safest to purchase lobster mushrooms from experienced foragers who know how to properly identify and harvest them. Sometimes they can be found fresh in markets in the American Northwest and Southwest, or you could find them dry worldwide. You can also forage for them in those regions, but some people believe there's a small risk it could be toxic if it's attached to an unsafe mushroom that it hasn't fully digested. As far as I've seen, the risk seems to be mostly theoretical, as there aren't many well-documented cases of someone being poisoned by a lobster mushroom in these circumstances. Usually when the lobster mushroom parasitizes its host, it seems to convert the vast majority of the mushroom into its own tissue, leaving behind only small traces of the original mushroom's compounds, including its toxins, if any. Still, it's safest to leave foraging to the professionals or only consume lobster mushrooms that are fully parasitized. And when foraging, always avoid mushrooms that are spongy, damp, crumbly, or that smell bad. Well, that's it for lobster mushrooms. Have you ever tried one? And if so, what did you think of the taste? Oh, and here's a fun fact to wrap things up. We mentioned the turducken earlier, which became popular thanks to football legend John Madden, who promoted it during Thanksgiving Day NFL games. Rumor has it, there's a biopic about him that's currently in the works, starring Nicolas Cage. Personally, I'm excited about it, and I hope it will be its own Thanksgiving tradition. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Frank Ciopatini with Cervetti Software, and I'll be seeing you in the next one.